The 2009 season in Australian amateur golf started in January with the Master of the Amateurs event at the Yarra Yarra Golf Club in Melbourne. American Mark Anderson won the title after a playoff against his fellow countryman and one of the game's most exciting young talents, Rickie Fowler. Australian Daniel Beckman was perhaps unlucky not to join Fowler and Anderson in the playoff after leading into the final round before missing the playoff by just one shot. In late January, the Lake Macquarie Amateur was played at its traditional home at the Belmont Golf Club near Newcastle. New South Wales' Scott Arnold won in style, his closing round of 67 securing a three-shot victory over the local golfer Brendan Smith. To the New South Wales Amateur Championship played at the Australian Golf Club in February, and it was the Australian Golf Club member Michael Smith who used his local knowledge of the layout to win the event over Scotland's Ross Kellett. Earlier in the week, New South Wales medal honours were shared between Jason Scrivener, Kyle Grant and Lincoln Teague. The Riversdale Cup was played in Melbourne in March, and Jordan Sherritt dominated the field, cruising to his first national trial title when winning at 21 under par. He finished 5 shots ahead of nearest rival and the defending champion, Scott Arnold. The Australian Amateur Championship was played in March in Brisbane at the newly revamped Royal Queensland Golf Club. Rising star Bryden McPherson added to his rapidly growing list of victories by winning the Australian Stroke Play Championship after the Victorian had finished equal with Melbourne-based Korean Jin Jeong at 7 under par. A birdie on the first playoff hole handed the title to McPherson. In the Amateur Championship itself, New South Wales' Scott Arnold secured the most significant title of his impressive amateur career when he defeated Daniel Beckman 3-1 in the final. The win propelled Arnold to the #1 position in world amateur golf. The Australian Amateur Trophy nicely capped off Arnold's list of significant achievements in amateur golf. The 2006 Hong Kong Amateur, the 2008 Riversdale Cup, and the 2009 Lake Macquarie Amateur are just a few of the significant trophies he secured before making his professional debut on the European Tour at the European Open in May. Early impressions in professional golf indicates a very good future for the Cronulla Golf Club star. Julia Bolland took out the Australian Stroke Play Women's Championship, while 17-year-old Justin Lee became one of the youngest ever to win the Australian Amateur Championship with a one-up win over Taipei's Wendy Tsai. To the Golf South Australia Amateur Classic in April, and it was Kombucha's Daniel Nisbet who cruised to an all-the-way victory to claim his first national trial event title, beginning what would be a record run for the talented 19-year-old. In one of the strongest stretches in Australian amateur golf, Nisbet would go on to record 3 further wins at home, with the Queensland Amateur Stroke Play, the Queensland Amateur Championship, and the Kapira Bowl, before winning his maiden international title at the Hong Kong Open Amateur in November. Added to his runner-up finish at the Sahali Players Championship in the US in July, a 4th place finish at the St Andrews Links Championship in the UK, and a berth in the match play at the British Amateur, Nisbet's performances, both at home and abroad, arguably made him one of the standout Australian male amateurs for the year. To the New Zealand Amateur Championship at Titirangi Golf Club in April. It was Victoria's Bryden McPherson, winner of the Australian Stroke Play title in March, who played peerless golf to win the New Zealand Amateur Stroke Play title, 3 shots ahead of South Africa's Nicole van Wyk. McPherson, in the process, secured the unique honour of being the current holder of both the Australian and New Zealand Amateur Stroke Play Championship titles. Matt Jaeger then secured the New Zealand Amateur Championship with a 6-5 victory over Van Wyk. It was Jaeger's first national title and second international win. The win also sees Jaeger receiving an invitation to next month's New Zealand Open Championship in Queenstown. Club pennants were played in May in Sydney and Melbourne. For the second time in as many years, Moore Park won the Sydney Major Pennant flag after defeating Mona Vale 4.5 to 2.5, while the Commonwealth Golf Club won the 2009 Division 1 VGA Pennant Final 4-3 over the defending champions, the Victoria Golf Club. On the international scene, 3 bogeys over the last 9 holes at the St Andrews Links Trophy potentially cost Daniel Nisbet a shot at claiming the championship title, eventually finishing in a tie for 4th position, 3 behind the eventual winner, Ireland's Alan Dunbar. At the British Amateur Championship at the Farby Golf Club just outside of Liverpool, Jaeger's run continued when he produced a course record opening round of 66 before he and Brendan Smith eventually finished the stroke play qualifying rounds in a tie for 4th. Jaeger and 3 other Australians, Bryden McPherson, Daniel Nisbet and Lincoln Teague, made it through to the match play, with Jaeger finishing the best of the Aussies after taking England's John Carroll to the 20th hole in the 3rd round. A win when defending his federal amateur title in October had Jaeger back in the winner's circle, and he would end the year by retaining his position inside the world's top 10 amateurs and as Australia's top-ranked amateur. In the US, Victorian Ben Weatherly secured a top 32 finish in the prized North and South Amateur Championship at Pinehurst Resort in North Carolina in July. A week later, Tarquin McManus and Luke Blumink finished as the best of the Australians in a tie for 6th at the Players Amateur in Bluffton, South Carolina. McManus, who was based with the University of Arizona, would then go on to his 2nd top 10 finish at a major US amateur tournament in as many starts, after the Queenslander finished in a tie for 3rd at the Southern Amateur Championship at the Colonial Country Club in Tennessee. Another US-based Australian, Matthew Giles, made his nationwide tour debut in July with the Children's Hospital Invitational in Columbus, Ohio. Giles received a Ping All-America Honourable Mention by the Golf Coaches Association of America and was one of the University of Southern California's main players, finishing the 2008-2009 US collegiate season as the team's low-scoring player. In November, Giles was the only amateur to make the cut at the JB Ware Masters in Melbourne. At the US Amateur Championship, Texas Tech-based Matt Smith was the lone Australian to qualify for the event in August at Southern Hills Country Club in Oklahoma. Smith was the 45th qualifier and progressed to the top 32 of the championship before bowing out. Just 7 Australians attempted this year to qualify for the championship, with Smith taking medalist honours at sectional qualifying in Rayal's Course, Texas. In Canada, Jordan Sherritt won the Barrett Amateur and later posted the 3rd place finish at the Asian Amateur Championship. Back home at the Australian Interstate Series, the Victorian men's team made it 2 consecutive titles when successful at the Peninsula Country Club in Victoria. Looking ahead, the immediate future for Australian amateur golf looks bright, in players such as New Zealand amateur champion Matt Jaeger, Victoria's Bryden McPherson, Queenslander Daniel Nisbet, recent June's medal winner and Victorian amateur champion Kieran Pratt, and Michael Williams amongst others. The stocks of Australian men's amateur golf have seldom looked better.